Okay, you'll have to forgive me because this is my very first time trying a video like this. So there's no staging or professional lighting. You can tell by my shadows. I'm just in my sew room on my cutting table. I'm having my phone held up by a vase of all things. The first thing I did was pinned my 2 layers together. I'm doing a white layer and a red layer, so I'm going on a tone on or a high contrast. And I'm going to do this in negative reverse applique. So that is where I will stitch inside the lines and then cut away around the red to the negative white space behind. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your grain lines are going in the right direction. If you look at your fabric up close, I don't know if you could tell on this, there's one side has lines and the other side kind of looks more like a crosshatch. So the right side is the side with the lines, and you want your lines going in the same direction because that determines how the fabric will stretch. And then I pinned mine together because you don't have to with these small sachet squares because they're so small, but it helps a little bit. Then I'm going to hopefully in your kit you still have your stitch length guide that was on the back of my card. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start with this piece right here because I want to show you how to handle the edge. And if you look at your stitch length guide, I'm not going to put it down there because I don't really use it, but you're more than welcome to. Of course, I've got my thread that's doubled with a double knot at the end, and it's been loved. And if you need to know what loving your thread is, you need to take my Introduction to Hand Sewing the Alabama Channon Way, or you need to buy one of Natalie's books and she'll explain all about it. On an edge piece like this, again, this is one where I'm going to sew in the center and cut out around. So I'm just going to start at the edge here. One of the other choices that you have is whether or not you want your knot tails to show on the right side or to be on the wrong side. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the wrong side. Even though I've done it already, I really haven't made a commitment since this is an edge piece. This one will be sewn in the seam anyway. Right around here is where I would probably want to make that commitment. And honestly, I would look at the design on the piece. And here I'm going to grab another piece that I made earlier. This was a tone-on-tone negative reverse applique. And in this one, I put my knots, tails, on the right side. It just gives it even yet more texture. But this one had a lot of logical places that were endings of shapes where it made sense. Like this shape, you'll notice I didn't do it because it's more of a rounded shape. And because this doesn't have as many logical endings in the middle of it, I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave my knots on the wrong side. Okay. Go about 1/4 inch. Come back up. I like to sew it like this, where I do several stitches at a time. Obviously, if you're new to sewing, it might not be as easy to do that, and then you're going to want to pull it all the way, make sure it's tight, but I also like to hold it here so that I don't pull it so tight that it bunches up the fabric. I forgot what I was going to say. And this is on a video, oh my. Then now, I'll just go ahead and start coming back. If you're new to sewing, you might find yourself, and here I'll do an example of it, is more just, I'm going to smooth it all down, is more just where you do one at a time, like bring it up, then take it down. Once you're more practiced, you can do several stitches at once. Now, so this is an edge piece, but I'm not going to worry about trying to do anything on this edge. Again, it's going to be bound down in the seam itself. So that's where I would stop that. Now, there is an opportunity to jump shapes. Now, what that would mean was I would come here and come back up here without tying off and, knotting, tying, creating another knot at the end. It's quicker if you jump shapes, but the rule of thumb for Alabama Shannon is you wouldn't jump a shape if the stitch at the back, oh look, there's a little loose one there. Oops. There you go, pull it tight. If the stitch at the back that you create could fit a pencil underneath it. And what do you know, I don't have a pencil handy. But I think a stitch that length, you could fit a pencil underneath. So I wouldn't do it. Look, there's even a little knot there too. So if I were doing this professionally, I would probably look at every stitch before I moved on to the next stitch to make sure it was perfect. But I'm just making a fun sachet, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to look at this piece to see if there's a place close enough to jump shapes. And for me, it would probably be like 2 stitches there and then to jump over here. That might be worth it. You might be looking at like this, how close they are, or this one over here, how close they are. But to be honest with you, because this is negative reverse applique and that you cut away the red, and a shape that small, I'm not even going to stitch that shape. I'm just going to cut that shape away altogether. Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of this. Actually the beauty and the difficulty is there are so many decisions to make along the way. Colors, color of thread, techniques. Once you get your technique, if you want to do every one, if you want to put your knots on the inside, the outside. But that's also where you start finding your creative voice. It's in your ability to make these decisions, or your confidence in it, and then having fun with it. All right, so I will knot this off, and always in Alabama Shannon work, you do a double knot because these are only bound by their knot. So the knot is always the only thing holding these together. Okay, then clip it. Do another knot. Double knot. I know, oh, I'm sorry. I know that there are people who know how to make a knot just by doing something like this, and I haven't learned that yet, so I apologize. So I'm going to go ahead and do this shape for you. I like to start a shape on a pointy end. It just seems logical, and I'm going to go ahead and put the knot on the right side just so you can see what that looks like. And I have probably made this thread too long. She says your thread should never be longer than your forearm, because then you're using your body not just as a machine. You know, your arm goes back and forth too much and it will get tired. So since I'm going around the corner, I'm kind of just going to stop here. I'm not going to keep going around because it does start to bunch up a bit. And just go around the corner like this. It doesn't really... Again, this is my first video, so I apologize for not talking all the time. And I have a cold, which makes it even more difficult. So now I've got about this much space left. I will probably just do a 1/4 inch stitch and it will end short of that, and then I will knot it on the other side. Sometimes if I'm closer, I just go and then would go that whole length, but obviously that would make too long a stitch, so I wouldn't do that. But it's really, there is no right or wrong. That is the beauty of it. And so that shape's done. Remember I said this was the one I might jump a shape? Let's try that just to show you what would happen. So I'm going to come up here. Now, so see how long that stitch is? And let me go grab a pen real quick. Pencil, I've got one right here. So that wouldn't be very good because I can fit the pencil under it. So you wouldn't really want to do that. On a garment, especially not, because when you're putting it on and off, things could get caught. This, because I'm going to just sew a backing on it and put a sachet in it and then sew the backing on, I think I'll cheat this time. But if you're doing a garment, don't cheat. You know what? Let's not cheat. So you changed your mind and you don't want to do that. It's easy enough to pull that out, cut there, and knot it. Oops. Made it a little long, and it's hard to see because I'm trying to stand back so I can have the video in the camera have the good view, not me. This is where it would be good to have great knotting techniques. So if you knot like that, as opposed to the way I did earlier, you can see how this one, both the tails go the same direction. If you just take two places and knot it as if it were like a shoestring tie, your tails go the opposite direction. So that's something you would consider if you were making it a garment too. You wouldn't necessarily want your tails. If it's high contrast, you just know that your tails would look different. These would be going the same direction, these would be going different. And obviously if this was a garment, that wouldn't fly either. All right, I'm going to keep going and then we'll come back to start doing some cutting.